You look puzzled. Come on in the quest giver's lair and we'll solve it for you.
If you're looking for adventure, grab the modules each month to support the channel and play the campaign with your gaming group. You're sure to get hooked on adventure.
This video is brought to you by our sponsor, you, the person who buys our system-neutral RPG products on questgivers.com. These are designed for new and veteran players alike. This helps put together this free content on YouTube for everyone to subscribe to, learn from, and enjoy. We and our viewers truly appreciate your contribution.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about two puzzles. First is organic and the next is mechanical. All right, so let's talk about the organic puzzles. The organic puzzles are funny because players don't realize that they're actually solving these all the time. You know what I'm saying? So if they're, fighting a monster that needs a special thing to defeat, that's a puzzle. You're figuring it out. If there's a bridge that's, across a chasm that's broken and you got to figure out a way to get across, maybe there's a ballista with a rope that you can shoot across and, shimmy across. That's figuring out a puzzle. That's an organic puzzle that happens all the time in the game and the players don't even realize it. But we're going to focus on mechanical puzzles in this video. So a mechanical puzzle is something that has, rules to try to, solve and, a certain solution that you'll get that will get you past the puzzle, whatever it is. So Gareth, tell us what a mechanical puzzle is.
So while my favorite kind of puzzle is the organic puzzle that Scotty was talking about, the mechanical puzzle is what most people think of when they think of puzzles. And that's where the players have to use their abilities rather than the characters in the story that you're playing. So that's the fundamental difference there. So what you're looking at is you're looking to exercise the player's ability, but you want to use the character's abilities in order to give them clues and hints and that sort of thing. So bear this in mind that you're using their real world abilities in the game world. So you don't want to tax them too much because that's where all the problems start to lie. You always hear of people that, I don't like puzzles in RPGs. Well, that's because the DMs tend to be taxing their real world abilities, and so the character in the game should be giving them clues as to what to do. We use puzzles extensively in our module, The Knights of Old, and that is because it's the part of the story where the characters are being tested by mentors. So there's mentors in here that are testing their abilities to see whether they're ripe enough to continue on with the quest. So that's all the kind of stuff that we put into this module. So if you're interested in the kinds of puzzles that we do, have a look at that one. Remember to keep fun as the main element of the puzzle. The moment it becomes drudge work and actual work, the player's not going to want to do it anymore. So keep the fun element in the puzzle.
So if the characters discover a puzzle, you want to give them as much information as possible. You want to make it clear what the goal is for the puzzle. If they're, having to check around and everything, that's fine if they have to find the clues and all that. But don't make the clues necessarily dependent on checks, because if they fail a bunch of checks and they don't get the information, that's really frustrating and they probably won't figure out the puzzle. You want the players to, actually decipher and, not just frustrate them.
Now, you don't really want to make yes or no puzzles. These are puzzles that are basically where the characters it's either an on or off, yes or no. You're pulling a lever. That's not really a puzzle. A puzzle tends to have multiple components to it that have to be solved, so that you may be having to move objects around. You may need to be solving riddles. There's multiple components to the actual organic puzzle that create this mechanical puzzle that they have to solve. Now, that being said, it's very important that the puzzle actually remains within the context of the theme and the world that you're actually having the characters go through. So the puzzle needs to fit the logic of the world. So if things are able to hover and levitate in a magical world, that should be perfectly fine as a puzzle thing. Don't be playing in a game where that's not stuff that normally happens, because then it confuses why are these things hovering and floating around. That doesn't really work in the context of everything else we've been doing in the game. You want it to be adding flavor to the story. You want it to be part of the story. So think about the narrative implications of this actual puzzle. How does it fit into your story? Don't just make it something that's blocking their path. Make it part of the story. This is the ancient dial of Othoberon, and it was created to protect the village from the dark forces of Kanar. It's part of the story. So the Great Wheel, and then the villagers all talk about the Great Wheel, and there'll be some old bloke who understands the old runic script from back in the day, who can then help you with some rubbings that you bring back to him to help to solve the riddle of the giant dial. That's integrating a puzzle into the actual story.
In a combat-heavy game, you're going to use a certain set of skills, right? But when you discover puzzles, you need a different set of skills. Those skills that don't normally get used, maybe investigation and perception and other things like that. Now, be careful of the problem that those can cause, because like I said earlier, you don't want information dependent on skill checks. You want the players, through observation for their characters, to understand the rules of the puzzle and how they solve the puzzle. But you can do this. If they get good rolls on their skill checks, like those kind of investigation and things, you can give them extra information that may make the puzzle a little easier to solve, right? If they roll really good on those checks. And so you're bringing the game into helping the mental powers of your players. So allow those kind of mechanical checks to help solve the puzzle, but not be the end-all be-all of solving the puzzle. Just give them extra clues to help them solve it.
If players seem stuck, give them some clues as to how to figure this thing out. They're not thinking along the same lines that you were when you concocted this puzzle, or someone else concocted the puzzle. You need to be hinting all the time as to possible different logical steps that they can take. So one thing you can do is consider multiple solutions to the same puzzle. Now I can get a giant hammer and smash this open, I can pick the lock, or I can just magically open it. Now, you may not have thought of these solutions, but if the players do think of these solutions, don't hamper the progress of the story. Let it flow. It may not have been the solution that you thought that the puzzle should have, but if it's logical and consistent, let it work that way and reward the players accordingly, as if they had figured it out the way that you thought the puzzle should actually be completed. The important thing is their solution actually does need to make sense. So if their solution is ridiculous, don't allow that.
Something I like to do when I'm setting up puzzles is give out actual prompts or clues. So say you give them this little sheet of paper, the slip of paper, parchment paper, and it has the different clues on it, and they can use this as a reference to try to figure it out. So it's nice, and it really helps with the immersion of the game also. But it's nice that they have reference to this. They can look at this, and they don't have to keep asking you, okay, what was clue number 1 or clue number 2? So think about those kind of props you can hand out. But you can even take it further, of course, like I like to do with being a terrain game master. You can actually do the puzzle on terrain. So here was a puzzle I had in the game, and it had to do with these gems, and the player had to do with these gems, and the players had to get them in order around this pedestal. Okay, now this skeleton here was a pile of bones on the pedestal, and when they approached it, it formed into the skeleton. It was an undead adventurer that had been trapped here before because he didn't figure out the puzzle, and he had to answer questions about the rules and what they were supposed to do with the puzzle. So that was a great little role-playing encounter baked right into a puzzle encounter. So fun. So the players had to figure out which color these gems would go around this circle, and they had to get them in the right order, and if they didn't, there was going to be something bad happened to them. It was going to be like this nightmare thing was summoned. Luckily they didn't have to do that because they did figure out the puzzle, but they had to get all the gems in the right order around the pedestal. So this was a really cool way that you can get the players focused on a puzzle and give them reference to look at. And if you're not using something like this, think about using drawings or pictures, that kind of thing. That, you know, focuses them on the puzzle, because it's really about most puzzles are about logic and trial and error, and to have kind of a physical reference in front of you really helps, you know, with it not just being abstract and out there, you know, and you're trying to figure it all out in your head. If you have something to kind of look at, you know, it's almost like the scratch paper when you're figuring out a math problem. When you have something to look at, it kind of focuses your attention and that kind of thing. So I really like having this kind of stuff when I do puzzles, particularly when I do puzzles.
People tend to put their thinking cap on when it comes to puzzles, but what they don't realize is a lot of very good GMs run the entire session as a puzzle. That's very important as a GM or a DM, depending on the game that you're playing, is to get into the mode of thinking of all the things that you're doing as creating problems for the players to solve. That's where the difference between organic and mechanical puzzles comes in. Now obviously we've been focusing on mechanical puzzles, but organic puzzles is part of the rest of what you actually have to do. That's things like the locked door. I love a locked door.
Now I like to reward players that pay attention. And what you can do for puzzles is you could have clues strewn around the dungeon or the world when they're getting ready to encounter the puzzle. And those players who paid attention to those clues will have an easier time figuring out the puzzle. So that rewards good players. That rewards good play. That rewards players that pay attention in the game. So I like to do that in my games, and I think you'll find it's very effective for people. You know, when you tell them things in the game, they're like, okay, maybe we better remember that. That might come in handy later.
Now, a key element to almost every puzzle is time. And now we have a whole video on time that we did, and timing with monsters and things like that. And we've also talked about ticking clocks before. But when it comes to mechanical puzzles, it's important to realize that obviously if a puzzle is difficult to solve, you need to allow more time for the characters and the players to actually solve the puzzle. So don't create difficult, complicated puzzles that require a very short space of time to solve. Don't give them 3 rounds to solve a ridiculously massive, like hard to fathom puzzle. If it's that difficult, spread it out. Give them multiple days. They're allowed to go back to town and talk to people and come back. That is what you do with difficult puzzles. Now, if it's a really simple puzzle, the solution is extremely simple, then of course, put the time crunch on. Do the thing where there's the dark lurker in the lake that's coming to grab you while you got to figure out what the word friend is in Elvish. Interesting puzzles are the ones that are logically consistent, which means that they make sense and they fit within the logic of the game that you're playing. So don't have new rules that have to be created in order to use the puzzle in the game. They must use the mechanics of the system that you're actually using, so that players can go, my character wants to think about this really carefully, what do I roll? Interesting puzzles have components that stretch beyond what is believed to be the puzzle itself that the characters have immediately in front of them. So that may be there are aspects of the puzzle that's in other rooms, other dimensions, other places, and the players need to go to all these things in order to gather components or pull levers or do things in different locations. These are much larger puzzles, and again, you need to allow a lot more time for these to be solved. But those, as you get good with your puzzles, you can begin to do these kinds of things, and your players, if they're the type of players that enjoy that kind of puzzle in the game, that's what you begin to do as a higher level DM. As veteran DMs will appreciate that a good puzzle is something that the characters will be talking about for years to come. Now on September 1st, our Kickstarter launches for the book of all 12 campaigns and 4 quick quests that will be available both as PDF and a printed book. So we urge you, if you're interested in the kind of stuff that we put together and you'd like to support this channel even further, please support our Kickstarter on September 1st. We have a new video every Friday that goes into all kinds of depth on various aspects of role-playing games. So if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications. The subscription is up there in the corner. This video here will interest you, and this video here is the most recent one that we put out. Thank you for watching. Here, you got to click one.